Okay, welcome. This is our lab number 11, I do believe. And we're going to go through how to create a backup. So, as with most labs, I spend about 3 or 4 minutes talking a little theory, and then we get down to action. All right, so took a little write up here. You can protect your data by taking backups at regular intervals. Azure Backup creates recovery points that are stored in geo-redundant recovery vaults. So that means the backup vaults are stored in multiple regions. When you restore a recovery point, you can restore the whole VM or specific files. And in this lab today, we're doing specific files. Only because it's actually a little more difficult, and based on it's just a little better to do specific files. You usually get asked more questions about that, because restoring a whole VM is just a single check mark. I'll probably do a lab doing a whole VM, but today we're doing just one file. This lab is going to walk you through to restore a single file to a VM running Windows Server and IIS. If you don't already have a VM to use, don't worry. The first part of the lab creates one. So in a recap, in this lab, we're going to learn how to create a VM via PowerShell, which you've done many times. Install IIS on the VM via PowerShell, which we have done a few times now if you've been following the labs in order. And then we're going to create a backup of the VM, schedule a daily backup, and then restore a file from the backup. Here's a little theory about backups. When the Azure Backup Service initiates a backup job, it triggers the backup extension to take a point-in-time snapshot. The Azure Backup Service uses the VM snapshot extension. This extension is installed during the first VM backup if the VM is running. If the VM is not running, the backup service takes a snapshot of the underlying storage. When taking a snapshot of a Windows VMs, the backup service coordinates with the volume shadow copy service to get a consistent snapshot of the virtual machine's disks. Once the Azure Backup Service takes a snapshot, it's kind of important. The data is transferred to the vaults. To maximize efficiency, the service identifies and transfers only the blocks of data that have changed since the previous backup. When the data transfer is complete, the snapshot is removed and a recovery point is created. So there you have it. Pretty good. All right, so can't be any questions, because if you had one, I want people to hear it. So I'm going to continue on to the lab. And the first thing to do is create the VM. So here I have a PowerShell script that we have used many times. If you need to see more of the script, or if you haven't seen the script, I'll just pause the video and you can type it. Right here, you can see you can't see all of it. So let me take the time here to show you the rest of it. And you're creating a security group, giving a public IP address, opening up these ports, and storing the credentials. And we're going to use a 2016 data center image and the size of our VM. Obviously, you could change this and this, but these work well. Second part of the script is going to modify our default HTML page to have a value of the computer name. And this is the file we're going to change and then restore. So, all right. So I'm going to come back over here, run this first line so I can store my credentials. And speed, password. Say OK. all stored away. And we're going to create a resource group called Backup Lab 2. Speed VM2, put it in the east. Here's our virtual networks, our subnet, etc. So let's click that line. I'll make sure it starts going, and then I'll pause the video. This should take, well, I'm going to time it on mine. That was pretty quick. Took about 2 minutes. So let's install IIS now. And we've done it many ways in these labs. Sometimes we log into the VM. But today we're going to do it all via Powershell without having to log in. So I'll run this command. And it looks like I'm calling the right resource group. Calling the right VM name. Alright, so it looks okay. Just in case you didn't get a chance to get all this down before. Here's the ending of the script. I'll just let it sit here for about 5 seconds, but of course you can always pause it. And that should be sufficient. So let's come over here and let's run this selection. And this will install IIS and modify the default HTM for us on the VM. This I would not think would take long at all. So I'm not going to pause the video unless I see this take more than a minute. But I couldn't imagine. The only thing I didn't do was wait very much between when this command finished and this one. So perhaps the VM is not fully online. But because it is taking quite a bit of time, let's see. Look, I'm going to pause the video. Okay, so it never finished when I ran it the first time. I stopped it, ran this command, and got these results. And you see it says IIS was installed. So I then reran this command, and about 30 seconds got these results. So it looks like it's all there. I'm going to run this command again, just to make sure, and I do have IIS. So I'm not sure what happened the first time. I think I didn't wait long enough between when this command finished and I ran this command. So I would suggest waiting at least 2 or 3 minutes, or make sure you can at least connect into the VM. But I think I just have enough patience. But it all worked out okay. If I look at my resource group, you can see I have everything I need here. So it's now to create the backup. So I'm going to click on the VM. Click on backup. I know that's confusing. To create a backup, you actually click on backup. And I'm going to create a new one. And for my resource group, go into backup label 2, policy. Choose a backup policy. Well, you can see it gives you one called daily policy. Let's just click here and see what policy allows you to define. And it's basically saying, hey man, how often do you want to back up and keep the backups? So mine here is called daily policy. I'm okay with that. Frequency, daily, weekly. I'm going to do it daily, just for now. I'm going to do it at 4 a.m. That's okay, because by the time it gets to this, I'm going to delete everything, so that's okay. Retain instant recovery snapshots for 2 days. That's okay. And there's more information about that. Retention of daily backup point, 180 days. Then you notice you can do weekly, monthly, and yearly. And default's 10 years. But we don't need to get that fancy. And notice that you could put backup service, create the resource group to store the instant recovery points. And you can actually put that in its own resource group. But I'm not going to change anything here. I just wanted to show you what a policy is in case you didn't know and what you can change in the policy. Because someday you might be asked. Say okay. And here it all is. And I'm going to say enable. And it's deploying. I'm going to pause. Okay, we return to this window. Let's go back to the VM. Back to backup. And notice we don't have any restore points yet. That makes sense. Our pre-check has passed. So let's click on backup now. And there's retained backup till. That's way too long. Because I want to get rid of this. I'm going to say 122. Just in case something goes wrong here. Say okay. And we're triggering. Like that word, triggering. And you can see we're going to configure the backup and complete it. And now the backup's in progress. We click here. Notice that it's going to take a snapshot, just like we talked about. And then transfer to the vault. Remember that. You might get asked about that someday. Just a small update after about, 5 minutes. My configure the backup is complete. And now it's sending over to, nope, I made a mistake. It still is in progress taking the snapshots. I changed screens, I didn't realize it. So, still taking the snapshot. Just a small update. It's been 38 minutes and the backup is still going. And, oh, this is good news. The snapshot is complete. Excuse me. Got a little cough. Kind of time of the year. And we're transferring data to the vault. So, looks like this will be another video that is going to be at least 2 parts. But I think 2 parts are going to do it on this one. My last video, Lab 10, with Load Balancer, was a record 4 parts. But all right. Okay, we're back. And it looks like it took an hour to complete the backup. So, let's go back to our dashboard, back to the VM, and we want to get a public IP address here, open up a web browser. That's from an old lab. Let's close that, and paste our IP in. If all works out, we get the speed VM2 response for the default HTM, which is what we expected. Okay, I ran this command to change the, because what we want to do is restore. So we're going to need to change a file or delete a file. So what I did, I ran this command here, which is very similar to the command we ran to install IIS and change the default HTM. And this time I changed it to add the OS. So now, if I refresh, I get server name and it appended the OS. So now what we want to do is restore this file, the original, and it should return just to say speed VM2. So we're at 14 minutes and 46 seconds, so I'm going to stop this video and start another one.